Alright, I have a bit more hard drive space, not much, but should be enough before I have to attempt to drive my car over to the mechanic, so... Alright, this time I actually waited till after the load screen before pressing play. Apparently the survival skills lets you find more plants, which is kind of cool. Hello. Whoa, she's kind of creepy. The middle-aged peasant woman is dressed in brown leather cloth, draped down to her knees. Her hands are working at separating stringy, colorless vegetables in a pile before her, stripping the heads off the long fibrous stems with a paring knife. She discards the stems one by one, placing the heads of the vegetables into a small cradle-like basket in front of her. She doesn't greet you as you approach. You're not even sure she knows you're there. Excuse me? The woman doesn't respond. She keeps stripping the heads from the vegetables with a steady rhythm. She may be deaf. There's no indication she heard you. At first glance, she seems nothing more than a middle-aged woman. Unremarkable, maybe less stern than most, who seems more focused on weaving in her lap than her surroundings. Yet you suddenly notice she's not stripping the vegetables before her any longer. She's weaving, and the vegetable pots are now missing. She still pays you no mind, her brown locks torn and snagged from a lack of washing, like many of the townsfolk you've seen. There's a strange blur to her. Even the motions of her hands seem to be playing with threads that lack color and a shape that lacks interest. It may be that she is half-minded or deaf, but something feels wrong. As you watch her knitting takes on an odd cadence, you have terrible suspicion that something lurks beneath what your eyes are showing you. Her brown hair is long, almost impossibly to the length of her hands. As you follow the streams of her locks downwards, the hairs become long and black, splitting off into threads of black and silver and wrapping around her hands. She's forming a soul cradle with the threads, braiding a net in front of you, each finger long and sharp like a series of knitting needles, almost hypnotic. The silver and black strands of her hair weave together, with silver predominating as a highlight, the black shadowing it. And suddenly you're calm. You're on the plateau, almost the height of a tower several stories high. The plateau is like a table lying beneath the clear sky, and beneath the plateau, surrounding it in all directions, a forest hazy with mist. Although whether it's actual mist, or distance, or a recollection, that was the weirdest paragraph structure. Resting in the curve of a natural arch. I don't want to look at cars right now. Resting in the curve of a natural arch above you is a great copper bell, half again the size of a man, hanging at attention, as if looking down on you and the event unfolding before you. The plateau has soaked in the sun, and the rock beneath you is rough and warm. The sky forms a cradle around you, and you feel different, not disembodied. But you feel your body, your physical contours have changed along with surroundings. And you hear a soft series of chimes, like wind chimes. At the sound, the scene gains color and texture, as if the sound is beckoning you gently forth, filling your senses and thoughts, like mist rolling softly into a sealed chamber, and I don't have a choice. The chime coaxes you deeper into the memory, and you're certain it is a memory, a warm one. You're on the stone of a plateau, your knees on the warm texture of the ground, silver, white, shimmering like Adra. The plateau is formed of it, glistening in the sun, and you can feel the heat on your skin, your wrists and your hands are in motion. Weaving, not thread, but gathering, tenderly moving along the first movements of Barath's wheel. Your hands are wet. Your hands are upon the flesh of a newborn child, and you can feel the crowning of a tiny head, turning in your grip, its head slick wet from the womb. This got really very graphic soon fast. The hands you are wearing, inhabiting, have done this many times, and they're practiced and confident. You can feel distant pains in your own head as the head emerges, a stream of fluid from the womb, helping the newborn slide forth, and the woman's labored breathing crying out. As your hands move, you hear the sound of chimes clear, cutting through the haze of memory. You cannot see where they're coming from, but they're close, and they're meant as a comfort that you're certain. Draw the child forth. And coaxed by your hands, every movement causing the chimes to sound again almost eagerly, and the child comes forth, and as it does, your hands are in motion, weaving, and moving along the soft, wet rope, no an umbilical cord from the legs of the naked woman before you. You're holding a small child, still wet from the womb before you. Okay, I have no idea where I left off. The weaving part. Moving along the length of a soft wet rope, no, an umbilical cord from the legs of a naked woman before you, you're holding a small child, still wet from the womb. Before you, the child cries out. It's full of life, full of soul. The ringing of chimes echoing in its thoughts, filling it with its welcome. The soul is blurred at the edges, as if you are viewing a soul from within a soul. Wow, we've got really meta here. We're like in soulception. But it's there, it's alive. The woman before you is weeping at it. Her first cry, her hands reach out for it. You surrender the child to her, something you have done many times before. And as your hands move, the chimes echo the movement. You realize the chimes are hanging from cords on your wrists. And where they once echoed in the memory, they are now echoing in the child's mind as well. The chimes are intended to welcome the child, to be its first gentle greeting to the world, a soothing sound guided by its tender motions of your wrists. You are helping to weave its thoughts, its perceptions, and the experience. The experience. The woman laughs with ragged joy, laughing from a parched throat. Her emotions seem soothed, but the physical demands of labor have left her exhausted. But the child is there, the child is safe, and all atop the plateau is peaceful, calm, distant, flattening out as the memory persists. With effort, the scene bleeds of color, and your mind becomes your own again. There is no pole, no anchor, yet the sound of the chimes remain. As they existed in the memory, they sound here as well, and they're hanging from woven braids on the wrists of the woman before you. Even as your head is spinning from the touch of her mind, the sound of the chimes on her wrists is sharp and clear, as if coaxing you back to the real world. The woman still sits before you, but she's nothing like what you first saw. She's wearing black, shredded garments that drape over her form like streamers. Her hair is streaks of black and run through with silver. Her age is almost impossible to tell. She simply feels old, like a crumbled watchtower. Okay. As she lifts her head to face you, you see that her hair is draped across the front of her face like a veil. What you first saw of her was a mental glamour of some sort, unconscious, and you realize what you see now is not what the world sees. You're perhaps the first to see her true self. Still, you don't sense a threat in the realization. If anything, you feel a sense of relief from the figure. You can hear her thoughts, and she's glad to at last be seen. Who are you?
I am seen, but the eyes of others do not remember. You were the first to see me as I am, the call stripped aside.
Oh. There's a light touch on your mind, a caress, and her left hand mirrors the motion of the touch. Reaching up to the air between you, you hear the chime on her wrist sound softly. Her hand moves as if pantomiming, resting on your cheek at the distance, and she speaks softly and slowly.
Your memories. A cadence of wheels on a caravan track. Fever. Questions by running water. Violence in a night's campfire. Arrows in the dark. And fleeing. Falling rock and cracking stone. And a storm.
The storm.
The storm. The storm that brushed you. Did its screaming wake you from your mind's cradle? Your memory of it is painful. Its cry is difficult to ignore. It's like a child. Many children crying out.
I encountered a bivouac. Yes, it did something to me. Her hand withdraws shyly, the chimes sounding softly once again. The woman stands uncertainly, as if she'd been sitting for some time, or is too weak to bear her own weight. You notice her cheekbones are tight, her face gaunt, and yet while her stance is weak, she seems determined to stand before you.
You are able to see me.
Uh-huh. You suddenly realize she doesn't seem to know what you saw when you looked at her, the image on the plateau, yet the image was so clear, so sharp, you're surprised she didn't feel you there.
To see me is a rare gift. A watcher's gift.
Soul storms. Felt like a pathway between our minds, but strange, gentle.
So many questions, thoughts, whirling like storm winds. That storm still roars through you, deep beneath your thoughts, yet muted and secret, like an underground river. I cannot tell if it is carving new channels, or eroding what keeps your true strength buried. The fact that you could hear it at all, survive it, is something few have ever done. Your power will grow stronger with each soul you touch, as it allowed you to reach out to mine.
There's a silence, and although it seems to last for but a heartbeat, in your thoughts it stretches out between the two of you, like a pull between your minds. You blink, take a breath, and you realize she wants to ask you a question, yet can't form the words, as if assembling them is painful, or there's simply not enough pieces. Do you wish to travel with me? You feel a wave of fear, gusted with the strength of relief, although oddly her expression does not change. Then fear dissipates and you feel strength and certainty, as if the plateau from her memory lies beneath you and a calm sky looks down upon you. Oh, she's the other cipher. Interesting. I'll have to return to my stronghold and maybe equip them and stuff. Get rid of the creepy priest.
Yeah?
So we got 2 new people. That's cool. Dude, I like your hat. Whoa!
Come on, not like this.
I just wanted to look inside. I wasn't gonna steal anything. I want to disarm his trap now so I can get the
No problem.
stuff for it.
Eh? No problem. There! Done!
Ooh. You see a modestly furnished house, warm from the cooking fire lit at its far end. This man is sitting at a high back chair looking at the large book with a small boy in his lap. He smiles and asks the child about the pictures on the pages as he points to different parts of them. He looks up as the woman approaches to stir something in the pot hanging over the fire. She adds some carrots to the pot, mixes them in, and then stands and turns to the man. She says something to him and leans in to give him a kiss when a knock comes at the door. Man makes to stand, and the woman motions for him to stay. She walks to the door and glances out the window. It's already too dark outside for anything to be seen. She lifts the bolt on the door and pulls it open, revealing a tall, lanky man with a strange smile on his face. There is a wet tearing noise, and the woman makes a weak groan, collapsing on the floor, blood quickly pooling around her. The man in the chair leaps to his feet, grabbing his son, interposing himself between the boy and the man at the door, who steps over the body and enters the house. Garlic vowed he would feel his pain, the man said conversationally as 4 other men entered the house behind him. It appears your rent has come due. Potions for sale. Potions?
Gods keep you.
Young woman leans against a wagon, one arm on one side of her face, her covered in bandages with raw rippled flesh showing underneath. A minty tangy scent wafts from her dressing. She smiles painfully. Just ventured into town. I'm about dry on some of my stocks, but you're welcome to have a look. See? A look-see in the back. Why are your stocks limited? It's the damn roads. Can't reach none of my suppliers, so I'm stuck with whatever I can scrounge up in the wood. Deer cap, river reed, and the like. That's well and good, but most potions require something stronger too. Troll skin, vessel bone, what have you. And there's really rare ingredients, like things you'd never be able to afford, let alone find on your own. What did you find? Dana winces as the rest of the story comes tumbling out of her. I've been keeping an eye on the Drake's Nest east of town. On Deerford Crossing, the beast stayed just long enough to lay a clutch and move on. Thank the Sky Mother it wasn't a full-grown dragon. She looks at her bandaged arm and grimaces. Fresh eggs are much more useful than ones that get passed between merchants or left in nests for weeks or more, and the clutch looked to be at its peak. I thought I'd see about getting an egg, but I didn't realize so many of them already had hatched, or that young worms were so territorial. Show me your moves. Get that egg for you. She keeps her gaze steady, but you see hope kindling in her eyes and twitching at the corners of her mouth. I sure hope you're not leading me on. I don't think I could stand getting burned again. She bites her lip. If you really mean to go after it, I could certainly pay you. Just remember, big as they are, dragon eggs are fragile, and there's a lot more I can do with a whole one.
Hail, traveler.
Holy shit. Looking for an Orlin. I did see an Orlin lady headed into the Dracogen the other day. She points across the road to the large building. Don't know what her name was, but she was acting real sneaky-like. What's wrong with the roads? Noise of disgust rattles from her throat. Brigands, looters, you name it. The gods may be hollowing out our babies, but it's grown folk that's rubbing out the rest of us. People are scrambling to Defiance Bay because they hear there's healthy births there, and all those refugees in abandoned homes attract desperate sorts like flies on dog shit. Alright. Sure thing. Bloop. I don't really have anything to sell. Just curious what she had.
Eh?
The smell around here reminds me of this stable hand, Drutman. Not real popular with the women, Drutman.
Okay. Alrighty. There's an axe in the wall behind her. Sid.
Hail,
Sid.
traveler.
A redhead stands by the fire, tuning her lute and plucking the strings. She hums snatches off a melody as she goes. First time at the Dracogen? Normally I'd have a song ready, but I haven't quite worked out this tune yet. I'm writing some chants about the founding of this inn. Say, you interested in the story? I haven't finished the chants, but I could tell you about it all the same. Sure, let's have it. Oh, excellent. These rustic fables are always great fun. Let me get out something to write with. It was built in the time of Hadrit's rebellion, and a dear lady, Thanu, once had a keep here. One of the towers still stands, but the rest is said to be buried under the village. Interesting. Anyway, she stuck to the side of the Empire, and a contingent of the Duke Hadrit's Knights of the Crucible helped the farmers and colonists in the area turn their keep to rubble. This inn was the first building that sprang up from the ruin, built with some of the same bricks the colonists had pulled from the Lady Thanu's castle, they say. Supposedly, the quarterstaff of her chief wizard even got lost in the construction, mortared into the wall or nailed under a floorboard. Anyway, the inn was supposed to be a haven and a meeting place while the locals built their new town. What's a Lady Thanu? A Thain, or Thanu, is a man or woman who's part of the military elite, a knight, if you will. Typically the position is inherited. A Lord Thain, or Lady Thanu, owns the land, and also commands several unlanded Thains. The woman who last held the keep here came from a long line of landed Thains. I take it something went wrong. Druidians are an ornery lot. And the more these new neighbors met, the more they argued. They realized they didn't agree on much besides ousting the old lord. The biggest divide was over the Glenfarthens and their nearby ruins. Hadrit's knights and their supporters wanted to keep the peace, but a group of misfits with more anarchic learnings that had formed in the town wanted to go after the tribes in the same way they'd gone after their lord. Soon the villagers were fighting with each other as much as with the Adirans. In the end, memories of the broken stone War of the Black Trees were fresh enough that the Duke's soldiers won the day. Most of the other villagers came around eventually, but some of the core troublemakers left to join the front lines of the War of Defiance, and others, I've heard, found their way into the Guided Compass, the most forward-looking of the Glenfartham tribes. I don't know if I believe that part myself, but it makes a good story. She points to the east wall. There's a portrait of one of the chief rabble-rousers and his rival in the peacekeeping faction. Someone's idea of a joke. I don't think they were particularly amused. Let's hear about the Broken Stone War. That was the first major conflict between the original Adiran settlers and the Glenfarthans. Happened 3 years into the colonization when some farmers knocked over an Adra menhir that was part of the Angwithan ruin. The war didn't last long, but it spread quickly and claimed thousands. In the early weeks, most of the colonists didn't even realize there was a war going on until the Glenfarthan raiders hit their village. There'd been small, spontaneous skirmishes between the colonists and the locals before them, but this was organized, and it was the start of decades of violence between the colonists and Glenfarthans. As you can see, Deerwood's full of history, even little villages like this. Tell me about the War of Black Trees. Started back in the colonial days, almost 30 years after the Broken Stone War. Even though the isolated conflict still broke out between the settlers and the Glenfarthans, both sides had officially agreed to peace. Edrang Hadrid, Admeth's father, was Griff at the time as part of the peace negotiations. He had signed treaties prohibiting Adiran colonists from looting Angwithan ruins. However, he being unable to outlaw the use of captured Glenfarthans as slaves. What's a Griff? A Griff is a governor of a colony and is subservient to the Adiran emperor. The early leaders of the Adair colony in the Deerwood, including the Edrang and Admeth Hadrit, were Griffs. At the start of the War of Defiance, Admeth Hadrit declared himself Duke of an independent Deerwood rather than the Griff of an empire's colony. It was the same term used for leaders of the newly independent Valayan republics. Anyway, we haven't had a Griff since... Sorry, I feel like I just had a tongue twister pop out of my mouth. Indeed, the taking of the Glenfarthan slaves had continued to be a source of conflict. It came to a head when the imperial agents, aided by certain earls in the Deerwood, began looting the ruins again. See, the Empire never actually agreed to the Hadrid's treaties on the matter, and the recent secession of the Valayan republics likely left them eager to weaken Hadrit's position. The looting sparked a brutal slave uprising and a guerrilla campaign among the Glenfarthans. Edrang Hadrit was too old to lead forces into battle, so he sent his son, Admeth. Admeth made a costly but effective decision that ended the war faster than anyone could have imagined. He burned the forests near the Iskaen River to keep the Glenfarthan war bands from retreating. Thousands of Glenfarthans died, and as Admeth repeated his scorched earth tactics in the following months, he wore down the remainder of their forces. To this day, over 150 years later, there's still sections of the Deerwood where the trees are nothing but bare, charred trunks.
Yeah?
Reading.
I just want to find her. Surely even you can understand that.
We're decent folk, my lord. Perhaps you should leave and check the wilds. How do you do?
The innkeeper digs inside a mug with a dirty rag. His eyes under his thick brows are tired but watchful. He gives you a quick nod as you approach the bar. Don't see many travelers these days. Something I can do for you? What was that exchange with that nobleman about? He looks up from polishing his tankard and glowers at the lord. Folk round here is decent. They mind their own business. You want to stick your nose in it, go talk to him yourself. Alright. Let's hear about Deerford. He runs his rag around the rim of the mug. Ask. I'll look around for her and hear myself. Tell me about the village. Walk from one bridge to the next and you've seen it. We're quiet, hard-working folk. We keep to ourselves and don't take to being pushed around. He glares at the well-dressed man standing off to the side. Used to be a castle here, built by some family of Adiran Thanes back when the Empire first came. Only one tower is still standing, and that's part of Trigal's shop now. Sid the Bard by the Fire could spin you a yarn if you're so inclined. Who lives in Deerfoot? Not many anymore. Hard to keep people around when everyone hears Birth and Hollowborn. We got a few who stick around to do business. Trigel's the leather courier. Hendna crafts potions, and Winfrith trades in general goods. Rumbald's a pig farmer, or was anyway. Something happened to Rumbald's pigs, I take it. Damn ogre carried him off. Now he squeals more than his herd ever did. He shrugs. It's rotten luck. And Winfrith? Been around even longer than I have. Nice enough fellow, but never could find his way to end his sentence. His shop's across the square. What's Hendra's story? Lady's a clever hand with potion poultices. Got herself trouble with a nest of worms, so I hear. Her cart's on the east end of town. And Trigo? He's a courier. Treats leather and makes armor and a few other goods with it. Problem is, smell of tallow and deer shit tends to put people off their food, and his shop's right next door. You said you don't see many travelers. Of course not. Why would they come here? We got bandits on the road and an ogre in the forest. A yapping fool Rumble will tell you. Worse yet, hasn't been a healthy child born here in over a year. Most kith that come here is just passing through. About the ogre. You don't hardly see him this close to town. Ogres and kith don't milk well. Ugly bastards, but they're smart enough to know that much. You want to know more, talk to Rumbold. His farm's southwest of here. Alright. Actually, I would like a room. Make sure you close your window if you're on the side facing Tygel's shop. Old stables. Nice. Sure, let's go in the worm's nest. Thanks, man. I'll just let myself in, don't worry. Pace. What you doing in the kitchen? The man wears a deer-style robe, simple but elegant. His fine leather shoes look like they're made for padding around indoors, yet they're caked with mud. He yanks at a lock of hair twined around his silk-gloved finger. His fine features are etched with anxiety.
My child is out there. Do they not understand?
My lord, we're doing everything we can. Unfortunately, these villagers...
Beasts take them all. I don't care how you do it, but find her.
Heard you arguing with the
A
innkeeper.
petty, small-minded man. Just like the rest of them around here. I've been paying him an honest fee for board and bed, and yet he can't be bothered to stir himself to concern for my Alice.
Actually, he seemed angry at you.
People from these backwater villages take offense for sport. You have to but show up with a full coin purse, and they'll hear insult in the jingle of your step. They forget that Duke Hadret came from the privileged classes, as did all of the other earls and lords who financed the rebellion they're so proud of. I've asked around, but nobody in this mudhole has any concerns beyond their swine. They turn my men away like beggars and seem downright pleased to be of no use. But you're not one of my soldiers. And you look like you're used to getting your hands dirty, if you don't mind my saying so.
I do. My lord, a simple vagabond. If you find her, he nibbles the thumb of one silk glove, tell her I won't be upset with her. She can come back and all will be well. I just want to make sure my Alice, my child, is safe. Nothing in the world is more important to me. I'd like to ask a few questions about your daughter. Alice. He blinks at you and licks his lips. Of course. Describe her. She's a striking young woman, bears more resemblance to her mother than to me. She has auburn hair and delicate, well-bred features. She must be, 28 or 29, so... Tell me about her disappearance. We'd stopped in Deerfoot for a few days. On our fourth evening here, I was making plans to continue our journey, and Lady Aless was feeling unwell and went to bed. When I retired a couple hours later, I found that she had vanished. None of my men had seen her go, and no one in the inn knew where she was. Since then, my people have been combing the village, but we've yet to find a clue, and the locals have been no help. Why did you and Aless come to Deerford? It was merely a stop along the way to Ina's Rest. However, she took ill shortly before our arrival, so it seemed prudent to allow her a few days to recover. Ooh. What's in Ina's Rest? He frowns as if about to protest, but he gives it in with a sigh. Lady Aless has reached an age where it is prudent for her to marry. Given the legacy business, I can't let her fertile years slip away by, nor do I want her womb to fester in the presence of so many hollowborn. Wow. Wow. Where's the rest of your family? Surely you wouldn't want to miss your own daughter's betrothal. Lady Harond is ill-suited for travel, I'm afraid, and unfortunately Aless has a few other close relatives. My sister and her husband, Ellis's aunt and uncle, of course, have been visiting a deer these past months. He rubs his knuckles. As for the siblings, Ellis has none. My wife has only given birth to Hollowborn, since Ellis, that is. Alright. Going back to your daughter. Previous questions. I don't give a shit about you. Eyes you carefully. Glad you have someone else looking for Leda less. Sooner we find her and get out of here, the better. What do you think happened to her? Could be a lot of things. The locals here don't seem to realize Hadrid's rebellion ended 150 years ago. Crowing about the castle they tore down and built their village over. I wouldn't put something like this past them. If I knew anything concrete, I would have found her by now. You seem eager to leave Deerford. Who wouldn't be? The whole village smells like wet leather and pig shit, and the locals have nothing but contempt for anyone who bathes more than once a year. He shakes his head. They won't lift a finger to find Lady Aless, but it raises our hackles when we go looking for her. Tell me about the lady. He shifts his weight. What's there to say? She's a lovely girl, quiet, keeps to herself. She'd make any father proud. You don't seem to know her that well. My primary duties are to Lord Harrond. Probably doesn't want to get married. Who's that coming up the stairs? It's not him, don't worry. I'll check that out in a minute. Hey guys. Is he wearing a red fedora?
This won't stop me for long. There! Done! This won't stop me for long. This won't stop me for long.
Oops. Cat. Just in case I get attacked when I walk in the door. The Orland hovers by the window, peering out of it every few seconds. As you enter the room, she watches you carefully, her hand hovering over her stiletto. She cranes her head to peer behind you. Anyone follow you? Who sent you? Someone told me you were responsible for heinous killings in Defiance Bay. Let me guess. Was that someone named Medrith? She draws her stiletto. It's a lie, plain and simple. I got on the wrong side of our employers, and now he's after me. But if you're here to do his dirty work, I won't make it easy for you. Relax, I just want to hear your side of the story. What story? The Domenials came after me. I just happened to rob the wrong place. How was I supposed to know they'd already claimed it? She runs her hands under her hood and through her hair. It was an honest mistake. I'm just trying to survive now. And if you spoke with Medrith, you know where he's waiting. Please help me get out of here. I don't like these Domenials. They're annoying. Go east. Medrith's waiting for you on the west side of the river. She nods slowly. Alright, I'm trusting you. I don't have much choice. See if you can send them the other way. That should buy me some more time. She follows the hooded figures towards the stairs, giving you a final uncertain glance as she passes through the door.
Quickly and quietly.
Something just broke. Jitter jitter. Suddenly daytime. Oh yes, I slept. That's correct.
Yeah?
Greetings.
Sturdy, broad-shouldered man wipes his hands on his slacks. He reeks of the same foul compound wafting from the vats, and his arms are stained with dye. You looking to purchase some leather? Rumbold mentioned something about an ogre. He's hardly talked about anything else since those pigs of his went missing. The whole town's been worried about that monster. People are starting to see shapes in their windows at night, hearing its growl and the snoring of their mates. It would put a lot of minds at ease if someone got rid of it. He scrapes red pigment under his fingernails. I sometimes venture into the wilderness collecting ingredients for my dyes, mind you. I've seen tracks east of here, near the river. That couldn't have been anything else. He wipes a splotch of dye from his elbow with his shirt tail. Something else you need. What's in the collapsed tower? It's collapsed. Nothing. He rolls his eyes and shrugs. A few hides on stretching racks and the tallow stench Dangler's always grumbling about. The rest of the keep's dust, just like the fool Lady Thanu who tried to hold it. There's a bard at the end who will tell you the whole blazing story if you want to hear it. What you got for sale? Various armors, I see. Trollhide belt. +1 endurance per 3 seconds. Nice. Got some good belts. I don't really have belts for my characters. Might grab both of those, actually. What can you tell me about Alès Herond? He shrugs. Only that her father's men have been banging down doors and stirring up trouble looking for her. Never met her myself.
Sure.
Come here. I want to talk to you.